How we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. We are continuing on with Samurai Season. I have bitten off more than I can chew with this, but I've got a few more films and two more books to cover. And yeah, there's still a little way to go, but the ending is in sight. But I'm enjoying it, and I'm really glad that I've took this deep dive really and learned as I've gone along. So we're coming to more modern films now. We're coming into 1980, and we are talking about Kagemusha, again by Akira Kurosawa. There's a bit of a upheaval in there's a struggle to make this to begin with, which we'll cover in a minute. But this is starring, what's the guy's name? Tatsuya Nagadai, I think it is, who we have seen before. He played villains in both Yojimbo and Sanjiro. In Yojimbo, he was the one with the gun, and he was what we covered the other night in Harakiri. I can never. There's debates on how this is pronounced, and I know I'm doing it wrong. So Harakiri, and he's also in what we will be covering soon. I've got a special guest coming on for this one, but also star of the Sword of Doom. So we will be covering Sword of Doom. Look out. And yeah, so that's who's starring. It was meant to originally star Shintaro Katsu, who is the star of the Zatoichi films, which again, I've still got these to watch. I've watched 3. I've got another 5 of these to watch. So we'll be covering that. He was meant to star in it, but fell out with Akira Kurosawa. And there's photos of them together and everything. Like he was, apparently production started, and he was basically acting like a bit of a megastar. Apparently, I mean, obviously 2 sides to every story. And his entourage were taking photos and getting in the way, and he wanted to film how Akira Kurosawa directs, and he wanted to use footage basically to use in his acting classes, which Akira Kurosawa said no to, and they fell out. Apparently also Toshiro Mifune, who we've been speaking about loads in this series, was also lined up to play in the starring role, and him and Akira Kurosawa also fell out. I'm sure there's a bit more to it than this, but from what I read, he was annoyed with Toshiro for doing the Shogun series, the original series. Obviously, the remake is doing really well at the moment. Disney Plus. I should watch it really. My dad's got the box set. Everyone I know of a certain age, their dad's got that on box set, so it must have been really big at the time. Excuse me. And but apparently he was annoyed with him doing it, and apparently there's television actors and there's movie actors, and I don't know, there's a bit of a weird one, but they'd made a lot of films together, and I'm sure whatever their fallout was, it was probably a bit deeper than that. But anyway, I think fate worked out for the best, because Tatsuya Nakadai, he's great in every film. He was fantastic in Hira. I need to read it. Harakiri. I keep saying to say Hagakure because of the book. He was great in that film. He's also great in Sword of Doom, which we will cover in due course. And he's fantastic in this as well. So I suppose what makes this different from the films we've been watching so far, I mean, this is more of a Shogun film. It's more about war rather than, like a one-on-one duel and things like that. There's more, more like the Yojimbo or the Zatoichi or something like that. This is more about warfare. And this is actually a historical film rather than a fictional film. So you can interpret the characters, and there's, with Akira Kurosawa, with all these films really, there's something to take from it, which applies everywhere. I mean, one of my all my favourite films really, the more I think of it, but I think whatever the film's genre is, if it's elevated above the constraints of the genre, that's what makes the film great. The reason sort of Metallica are the biggest band in the world is because people that don't listen to heavy metal like Metallica. I could take my mother-in-law to a Metallica concert; she'll enjoy it. You know, couldn't take her to Slayer. You know. And I think that's the thing with like The Godfather. There's obviously what's the best gangster film? Well, you could say The Godfather, but I'd probably say The Goodfellas, because Goodfellas is the archetype of the modern mafia film. Whilst Godfather, you could watch The Godfather and then never watch a gangster film again, because The Godfather would work in a samurai setting. It would be brilliant in a samurai setting. You could set it in ancient Rome. You could set it about in anything, because it's a story of heritage and empire and the passing of an age. Vito Corleone, he isn't necessarily fighting against the other mafia bosses. He's resisting a coming age, and his age is coming to an end. He's defending a world that no longer exists, you know. And I think a lot of these samurai stories they obviously do work in other settings, because a lot of them get remade for Western films. So Kagemusha, there's things that you can interpret into it, and I suppose it can be spun a certain way, but it is actually based in history. Of course, these things, you know, I'll let the historians debate of how accurate it is or how factual it is, but you know what I'm getting at. So, this is the first Akira Kurosawa film. I'm just looking through the films here. I'm thinking of, this is the first Akira Kurosawa film in the series, though, as colour. And as stunning as the black and white films are, Akira Kurosawa with colour, this visually is a masterpiece. And I know it did win some awards, but it's like a moving painting. And some of the scenes in this, and the backdrop of sunsets, like this, there is no CGI. The colour editing and colour manipulation didn't exist. He caught these stunning sunsets, and there's a dream sequence in there as well, which is awesome. It looks like it's set out like an old stage play, like an old Japanese, like, what's the shadow puppets, you know, when they cut out the paper and they make the thing and they shine a thing for it. Yeah, shadow puppets, yeah. Oh, funny enough, which is what this calls... Well, it's not called shadow puppet. So, Kagemusha apparently is the Shadow Warrior. On the dub of this, though, the subtitles, it actually says The Double, which I think is a bit more direct. I mean, obviously, there's different translations for books. We could go out today, go to a dozen bookshops and buy a dozen translations of Crime and Punishment, you know. So I would have thought, when these films get reissued and reissued again, do the subtitles get translated differently as well? But when it comes up on the opening credits, it says Kagemusha, and then in brackets the double. Whilst here it's the Shadow Warrior. And there was also another one. There was another one as well, which I found. Of course. Well, apparently it does literally mean... it's a Japanese... So Shadow Warrior, yeah, is apparently the literal meaning. Although in the film it says the double. But Shadow Warrior also means political decoy. It's the Kagemusha is a Japanese term for political decoy. Literally meaning Shadow Warrior. So there you go. So the story is there's a war going on, 3 different factions all fighting over one piece of territory, and there's a thief who's going to be crucified, but they notice he has an uncanny resemblance to the emperor, so they decide to hire him as a double. And when that warrior when that emperor gets a fatal wound, he thinks he's going to survive, but he sort of says, if I die, I want it kept secret that I'm dead for at least 3 years, because when people hear I die, people are just going to go on the attack, and he wants to conserve the empire. So the madness entails from there, really. It's a really good portrayal of what goes on, and it's set in 1571, and it does climax with a famous battle of the Nagashiro in 1575. We will come back to that. So the decoy, or the double, he takes on the role. Probably hasn't got a lot of choice, to be fair, which we'll come back to. He doesn't realise at first that the guy is actually dead. So I think he's meant to do, so, you know, if he's busy, they'll send him to another meeting, or if he can be in 2 places at once to confuse the enemy, so on and so forth. So he doesn't actually think he's dead. And the body is embalmed and stored in this large jar, like a large vase sort of thing. And he actually breaks into it thinking it's full of treasure, and discovers the embalmed body. And they then throw that into the river, and it causes suspicion. But he turns up as the person he's meant to be portraying, and convinces them that it's an offering of sake to the gods, and they manage to get away with it. But it's funny as well, though, because he ends up playing this role, and there's great scenes, like he's with these 2 geisha women, like these 2 mistresses of his, and they're questioning him because they're saying, like, what they say, he kind of goes away from it and comes back, and they say, oh, he's been ill, and that's why his voice has changed and things like that. And he kind of just goes, look, I'm going to confess, such and such is actually dead, I'm a thief, and they've hired me to be his double. Yeah. And then they all start laughing, and he sort of just winks at them all, and he's like, I've told them the truth, they don't believe me. And but it's funny because the 2 people he doesn't fool is his grandson and his horse. And his horse, famously, only that emperor could ride, and the horse is just not having none of it. But I think there is something that they could have expanded upon, because the grandson loves him. So when he said, oh, it's your granddad, and he goes like, you seem different, you're not my granddad. And of course this is granddad, he's been to war, he's been thinking, you know, he's been ill, people change, you know. And I think a real poignant line is, he goes, he's definitely changed because I'm not scared of him anymore. And for the rest of the scenes with the grandson's always on his lap, he's always playing with him. And at one point when he goes off to battle, the grandson's really sad. You know, and I thought there's something they probably could have played on, although it is a historical film, so I suppose they can't do too much with it. But if it was a fictional film, I probably would have gone, you know, it's funny that this thief, this low-born peasant, has been put into this position, and he's inspiring the people more than what the emperor would have done. Or he's, you know, this does kind of come into it a little bit. He ends up coming up with better tactics than what the original generals are coming up with. Like because he's not from this world, he's coming in with a fresh perspective when it comes to battles. Although he doesn't get drunk on the power, it's not like a power corrupting someone, but he does get overconfident. But then again, that could happen to anyone in any position, so I don't think that's too much of a theme. So he doesn't, it's not like like with Macbeth, for example, like where Macbeth forces himself into the position through murder and corruption, and then at the end it all just kind of comes back round to him, and he's haunted by demons, and what becomes his undoing is basically stuff that he's caused. It's actions that he's set in motion. So it's not his own downfall, is his own undoing. His own doing is his own doing, if you know what I mean. It's not like it's that, because this guy didn't really have much of a choice. He was going to get crucified, and they were like, well, this is your way out. It was them that made him take the position full time, and it was him that's been made to lie, and you know, so it's not really his doing that's put him in this position. And in some ways, you know, the grandson loves him. people take to him, and he ends up coming up with some good ideas combat wise. There is a good bit as well. So the Emperor's son, who obviously A, wants his inheritance, and B, wants to take the position that he's destined to take, and they're like, well, no, your father's dying wish was that we kept it secret for at least 3 years. So he's like a coiled spring here. And during one of the meetings, he asks him a question, thinking that he's going to blunder it, it's going to expose him, and he actually comes back with a really good answer and actually convinces the council. So it actually backfires on the son, which was quite good to see. And then so you've got, again, beautiful scenes during the battle scenes. There's a great one where they're walking across a hill with the sun shining through. Just and it's just so colourful as well. All the uniforms, all the armour, and it does get criticised for being a bit too long. But I think it's a film that you just marinate in, and take in just the scenery. There's a great scene where this messenger, who you can't tell where he's from because he's just caked in mud, but he's running through this thing with all the soldiers are sleeping, and you go through all the different uniforms. The battle scenes that climax at the end, I mean, some of them are stunning, and one of them takes part at night, and again you just see the hill, and this guy, he sits on a stool and just watches the battle, because he's like, the mountain doesn't move. He's known as the mountain, and you see it all the war kicking off. So all you see from behind this hill is just red. It just looks really haunting and really disturbingly beautiful. And again, as we said, it climaxes at the Battle of Nagashino, and in 1575. 5,000 extras were used. They filmed for the whole day, and the scene was cut to 19 seconds. There's a couple of different cuts with this as well, and this one was 152 minutes, but I've read that there's another one of 162 minutes. So I don't know what this is. Bog standard edition. There's no, the extras on this is, it's got a menu. Yeah, thanks. I know there's what are they called? Criterion, the most pretentious DVD company, overpriced. They've released it, and no doubt that'll be pretty good. But I bought a cheap one, and I just said I'd find the cheapest ones I can get, and if I like them, I'll buy them again as a nice addition. So, right, he falls off his horse because the horse isn't having it, and then the mistresses notice that he hasn't got certain scars, and that's when it comes out he's an imposter. Then everyone turns on him and exiles him, which is not really his fault. And then he's forced to see certain things back in, like, from the peasant's point of view. So the son takes over. Obviously now it's all come out, and that's when the war kicks off. And the war scenes are really, fantastic to watch. There's again the amazing dream sequence. Again, you've got to see it to believe it. Again, the way it's scened out, it does look like it could be a stage play, and it's very, I don't want to say psychedelic, but dreamy, even though it is a dream sequence. You know what I mean? But again, it's like they do the war scene, and then he does try and take up the weapon and just tries to fight, but it is futile. And then you've got these really daunting scenes at the end where you see all the soldiers laying dead, and it's just a disaster. It's a tragedy for everyone. There is no winner in this, And there's some scenes with the horses as well, which you see a horse sort of struggling to get up, and then takes two steps and falls again. And I did get me a bit worried about how horses fared in the battle scenes. I didn't see anything of like no animals were harmed in the thing. Maybe it's at the end of the credits, I'm not sure. But it is a bit of a bone of contention for me. Like, I found out recently that 9 horses were killed during Ben-Hur, and it was like, and it's a spectacular film, but it weren't worth 9 horses dying for. Kind of. I don't think you have to be like a vegan or like a animal. You know, you don't have to be a hippie to be against that sort of thing. So I was a little bit worried about that, but I couldn't see anything, and I'm sure the council mob would have been on the film by now if there was that. So maybe that's just nothing. But he's so you see him at the end. He's going through this battle, like this, you know, battlefield of all these dead bodies, and he's been wounded himself. He's bleeding to death, and tragic ending. The banner that they have, some of them carry on their back, the banner that he fought for. He sees one of them sort of washing away in a stream, and then as he kind of tries to salvage it, he's dying anyway, and then that's his last thing. And then the last scene is him with this banner, both just sort of floating down this river, being washed away, which is symbolic of us all being sort of caught in a stream that we can't control. And it kind of pulls away. But another masterpiece from Akira Kurosawa, basically. Let's turn this on, let's get a bit dark in here. Yeah, it's just another one to the collection. So I did mention earlier there was a bit of upheaval in making the film, and I skipped past it. So at the time, although Akira Kurosawa was respected as a director and had a prestigious body of work up to that point, he was getting trouble funding films, and he was in a real low point in his career, and actually attempted suicide. And he'd made another film that had flopped. Famously, there was a Western film, a war film called Tora Tora Tora, which he directed the Japanese sections of. I can't quite remember what happened with that. And then he went out to the Soviet Union to make a film, because he was funded. He was, they paid him. And then he had this film all worked out and just could never get it made, couldn't get it off the ground. And George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola just fell in love with the storyboards and the script, and because he basically did watercolor paintings for what he visioned. And Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas basically helped fund it. And apparently George Lucas just went to 20th Century Fox, who he was basically printing money for at this point because of Star Wars, etc. Just said like $1.5 million, a drop in the ocean by today's standards. And he just said, "Can I have it?" to give him. I just did it as a favour. It's like, it's a gift to me. I want this made. You're making it. And they weren't even expecting much of a success out of it, but they just did it as a favour to George. Francis Ford Coppola is in there as well. There's photos of him. Yeah, they must have, between the two of them, secured funding. So this was a passion project for them as well. Oh, we've got it here on the back. So it did win 1980 Golden Palm at the Cannes Festival, tied with All That Jazz. Best Direction and Best Costume Design at the 1981 BAFTA Awards. Yeah, rightly deserved. Best Foreign Film, French Academy Awards. And Best Director, Best Producer at the David D. Donatello Awards. So yeah, critically successful. Who gives a shit how much it made? It's good. End of. But it's often said that this is the dress rehearsal for what I was going to say Ran. It's actually Ran. Yeah, and this is the next masterpiece. And apparently this is basically the prelude or the precursor for the real masterpiece to come next. Although this is now considered the underrated gem. But kind of like Ride the Light. This is Ride the Lightning. This is Master of Puppets. From what I gather, I've not actually watched this yet. But this is obviously going to come next. So continue with me on this samurai season. I've discovered films I would never have watched otherwise. I'm really glad I've undertaken this. And I hope you're enjoying it as well. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know your comments. Are you a fan of Akira Kurosawa? What are your favourite samurai films? And is there any that you recommend that aren't on this list? I mean, obviously this could go on forever. This is a very, intermediate. I'm scratching the surface here, and I'm basically doing the top tier, like the obvious classics. I want to know the deep tier, the second tier, sort of, the underrated gems, the deep cuts. Now I've done this. Next, you need to watch these sort of thing. Maybe I'll do like a part 2 next year or something like that. But yeah, we've got next up. Not sure which order we're doing them in, but these are the next two. So we've got special guests coming on, and we're going to be talking about the Sword of Doom. This has been added. This wasn't originally on the list, and Ran will be doing next as well. So stick with me, folks. I hope you're enjoying it. Obviously, right, and Vagabond, I am halfway through volume 10, so a Vagabond review is coming soon as well. And Musashi, the book, I'm chipping away at it, but it's proving difficult. But it's just getting difficult to sit down and read, and it is a big book. But I am going to do it. Right, catch you later, folks. Speak to you soon.